Shalom everybody, James Trim here. Today I want to talk to you about the passage, very hard, one of the hard sayings or difficult to understand passages in Yeshua's sayings, or actually this isn't one of Yeshua's sayings, but it's in the book of Luke. It says, "For if they do these things in a green tree," reading from the KJV, "what shall be done in the dry?" What does that mean? We're going to find out very shortly. But first, I need to ask everybody to please donate to support this work. We recently discovered on January 31st that we were going to lose a major source of income for February and hereafter. So we've got to make that up in donations. So if you can please support this work, this is brought to you by you. And you are the ones that make this possible. So click on the donate link in the video description, or you can send donations by PayPal to donations@WN, as in Nancy, AE.org. Also, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to these videos so we can get our video subscriber numbers up, and so that you'll get notifications when more videos come out. And let us know what you think in the video comments, and of course share these videos on social media. All right, so looking at our handouts, there's a handout link in the video description, a PDF file that you can print out. The KJV of Luke 23:31 has a very strange passage. It says, "For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?" What does that mean? Contrary to a common misconception, it doesn't mean that Yeshua was crucified in or on a tree, green, dry, or otherwise. The idea that Yeshua was crucified in a tree comes from the fact that some passages in Acts, for example, use the word tree when referring to Yeshua's crucifixion. But in Hebrew, the Hebrew word for tree is etz. And etz just means, it can mean tree, but it can also just mean a stick or a piece of lumber or a gallows. It's actually used in the book of Esther to describe the wooden instrument upon which Haman was hung in the book of Esther. It's also the word that's used for the two sticks prophecy in Ezekiel 37. Those were definitely not, I will say those were definitely not trees, although because it has the word etz there, we understand that it has a parallel with the two trees in Romans 11. Okay, I don't want to get too far sidetracked here, except to say that the appearance of the word tree, the fact that the Greek translator misunderstood and translated etz as tree, doesn't mean Yeshua was crucified on a tree at all. He was crucified on etz, which is lumber. Okay. So what does the passage mean when it says that for if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? Well, in Hebrew and Aramaic, we have fewer prepositions in Hebrew and Aramaic than we do in English, a lot fewer. One of the more common prepositions is the letter bait. I say the letter bait because a lot of prepositions in Hebrew are what we call inseparable prepositions, meaning that they are prefixes, prefixed to words. And so in the Aramaic text of this verse, in both the Peshitta and the Old Syriac, in the Aramaic text of this verse, the preposition here is the bait preposition, ba. And this, because there are so few prepositions in Hebrew, the prepositions that we do have are very ambiguous. They can have a wide variety of meaning. And so this preposition in question can mean at, in, on, even with in the sense of to, and that's in, I think I already said. So where the KJV has in a green tree and in the dry, i.e. in the dry tree, the Aramaic has the bait preposition, which the Greek translator mistranslated and misunderstood to mean in a green tree, in a dry tree. And when we understand that, then we can understand that that bait preposition in this case can mean with. It makes much more sense that Luke 23:31 should be understood. If they do these things with a green tree, what will be done with the dry? And this brings us to the second page of our handout, because to the Jewish mind, and remember, these people had these, there were no bookstores as we know them, no printing press. Only the very wealthy could own books. And so people learned scripture and memorized it, because you didn't actually have a Bible. There was one at the, there was a scroll at the synagogue, and that you could study, but and learn from, and you heard it taught in the synagogue and read from in the synagogue. But unless you were very wealthy, you didn't actually own one. So in this case, we're looking at Ezekiel chapter 21, verses 1 through 12, or chapter 20, verses 45 through 21, verse 7, depending on whether you're looking at a Christian or a Jewish version. If you're looking at the handout, you've got it all taken care of with both versifications. So let's look at our handout. And Ezekiel here is going to tell us the parable of the green tree and the dry tree. And then this passage in Luke will make much more sense. You know, when Paul was teaching the Bereans, it says in Acts that the Bereans were checking the scriptures to see if what he said was true. When we're trying to understand the so-called New Testament, the Ketuvim Netzarim, the writings of the Nazarenes, it is important that we look back, it is important that we look back to the Tanakh to see what the passages are saying and read them in context of what the Tanakh says. So here, reading from Ezekiel, it says, "And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face towards the south, and proclaim towards the south, and prophesy against the forest of the field of the south. And say to the forest of the south, Hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says the Adonai Yahweh, Behold, I will kindle a fire in you, and it shall devour every green tree in you, and every dry tree. It shall not be quenched, even a flaming flame, and all the faces from the south to the north shall be seared thereby. And all flesh shall see that I, Yahweh, have kindled it. It shall not be quenched. Then said I, Ah, Adonai Yahweh, they say of me, Is he not a maker of parables? Then the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face towards Jerusalem, and proclaim towards the sanctuaries, and prophesy against the land of Israel. And say to the land of Israel, Thus says Yahweh, Behold, I am against you, and will draw forth my sword out of its sheath, and will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked. Seeing then that I will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked, therefore shall my sword go forth out of its sheath against all flesh from the south to the north. And all flesh shall know that I, Yahweh, have drawn forth my sword out of its sheath, and it shall not return any more. Sigh therefore, you son of man, with the breaking of your loins, and with the bitterness shall you sigh before their eyes. And it shall be, when they say unto you, Wherefore sigh you? That you will say, Because of the tidings, for it comes. And every heart shall melt away, all hands shall be slack, and every spirit shall be faint, and all knees shall drip with water. Behold, it comes, and it shall be done, says Adonai Yahweh. So notice that in this parable, The green tree represents the righteous, and the dry tree represents the wicked. So what we have here in Luke chapter 23, verse 31, then, if we plug these meanings, understandings in, is what's called a Kovacomer statement. Kovacomer is the first rule of Hillel. It means light and heavy. Kovacomer is a thought form. It's a form of reasoning that says basically, if X is true of Y, then it must most certainly be true of Z, where Z is of even greater weight than Y. It's often used with phrases like, how much more so? So if X is true of Y, how much more so it must be true of Z? So in this case, we have a Kovacomer statement, and we have the parable of the green tree and dry tree being drawn from the book of Ezekiel. So if we understand the green tree is the righteous, there's so many layers of misunderstanding here. You see, because first of all, the Greek translator of the Greek version of Luke misunderstood the Aramaic and possibly Hebrew, and mistranslated the preposition in instead of with. So that's the first layer. The second layer is that Christian readers don't know the Tanakh. And so they don't know that the green tree and the dry tree are references to the righteous and the wicked. In the parable of in Ezekiel's parable of the green tree and dry tree. And then they also don't know the first rule of Hillel and Kovacomer, and that this is a very common form of Jewish reasoning, if you will, and of Torah reasoning and Tanakh reasoning. So if we then plug that in, it's for if they do these things with a green tree, what will be done with the dry? Now, actually, this is the words of Yeshua, as I recall. If they do these things with a green tree, what shall be done with the dry? Or if they do these things with a righteous man, what shall be done with the wicked man? Implicitly, what is being said here is, if you look at all the things that Yeshua was going through in this instance, the scourging, the beating and scourging to where he was unrecognizable, and the crucifixion itself, and all the terrible things that he went through and was going through. And what he says is, look, if this is what happens to a tzaddik, to a righteous one, to the righteous one, to the tzaddik, what is going to happen to the wicked? Imagine what is in store for the wicked if this is what is happening to me as the righteous one. So that's what Yeshua was saying. Had nothing to do with trees, of actual trees, had nothing to do with Yeshua being crucified on a tree, or a green tree, or a dry tree. It had nothing to do with trees. Just kind of like when we say, boy, was I in a pickle. It doesn't have anything to do with pickles. To the Jewish mind, these green tree and dry tree didn't have anything to do with trees in this context. It had to do with the righteous and the wicked. So it's not in a green tree or in a dry tree. It's with, not in, and it's not a green tree and a dry tree are simply symbolic of the righteous and the wicked. And it's all a way of saying in a Jewish thought form that if this is what happens to the righteous one, to the tzaddik, to the Messiah, what is in store for the wicked man? All right, once more, I want to encourage you to please donate to support this work. We have a very unique ministry producing these materials, and so please click on the donate link in the video description and donate to support this work. Don't forget to like our videos. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll get notification when more videos come out. And also, we'd like you to help us get up to 3,000 subscribers. And share these videos with your friends and on social media. And let us know what you think of these videos in the comments. We'd like to hear from you. So with that, I'll just go ahead and say shalom until next time.